Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another webinar with Ranksense. I'm Brittany and I'll just be going through the chat and answering some of your questions. Today we're joined by Konrad Burkhart, who is the Senior Product Manager at Realtor.com, and he's going to demonstrate how to get people also ask questions using Selenium. So without further ado, let's get started.
Hi, Konrad. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So you are the Senior Product Manager at Realtor.com. Can you give us a bit of background information, what your journey has been up until this point to get there?
Yeah, so I'm currently Senior Product Manager at Realtor.com. I started my SEO career at Disney. I worked there for 4 years before moving to do SEO for ESPN, which is pretty much the same company, but had to work a lot with on Connecticut. I was living in LA, so a lot of traveling. And then after ESPN, I did a year with them, and then I decided to move to Germany to get a master's degree in data engineering. When I was doing my master's degree, I started working as a consultant for Uber on the Uber Eats side for Europe. And I did a year with them before finishing my master's. And then my old boss at Disney, Jeff, contacted me and said that he had a position for me at Realtor.com. So everything was really good. So I decided to move back to the United States, and now I'm currently working at Realtor, and it's been pretty good. So I've been doing SEO for like around 7-8 years.
That's great. And you mentioned that your master's was data analytics?
Data engineering.
Data engineering?
Yeah.
What was your bachelor's degree?
So I did my bachelor's in San Francisco. I did advertisement, and I had some like web design classes. So that's how everything started for me on SEO. Mm-hmm. So it was like a mix of advertisement and developing webs. So yeah, bachelor in advertisement.
And then what made you decide to do the master's in data engineering?
So I got to the point on SEO that I thought that I needed to like find ways of making things faster or finding solutions to problems that I was having. So I was like, okay, I was thinking of doing an MBA, but an MBA will be like the same for everybody. I'm not going to be like, with SEO is going to be one SEO that has an MBA. But then I was like thinking, what can I have that will improve my SEO skills? So I thought data engineering, like masters, or like getting the knowledge of like data engineering was like the perfect complement to my SEO skills, like building pipelines or learning Python or learning databases. So that's why I decided to do that and to try to get to the next step.
That's great. And just kind of as a disclaimer, we don't necessarily need to have a master's in data engineering to understand what you're going to talk about today.
Okay. Yeah, no, not at all. Like, in fact, I started learning Python before I went to do my master's, and that's how I found about like data engineering. So because it's very involved with Python, so I was like I learned Python before knowing anything about data engineering. So they're not connected in any way.
Okay, excellent. And so can you tell us about some of the ways that you have found to use Python for your SEO work?
Yeah, so luckily at my work, we have a really good development team. Like the developers are really good, but I found really good ways of like using Python to like say clean data. Before, when I was like at Disney, I used to clean data manually, like using Excel spreadsheets, and it took me like longer than what it takes me right now with Python. For example, also I learned how to solve problems that I will have to do manually, like one by one. Let's say if I have a indexation problem, or I want to clear cache on a URL. Before, let's say if I had like 1,000 URLs, I had to like do one by one, request Google one by one to clear the cache. But now with Python or libraries that that Python has, for example, Selenium, which we're going to talk today, you can do that in like what I don't know, 10 minutes without you doing it. Like you can leave the software running in the back of your computer and you can keep working on stuff, and then after like, let's say 30 minutes, everything will be done. So things like that have helped me a lot. There's a lot of things also, for example, checking test case. When we push something live, we can run a script that will check exactly what we want on the page. Let's say canonicals are pointing to the correct place, page title are what we want, or is the no index there? If it is there, there's a problem. So stuff like that, like checkpoints when we push stuff live, so we can make sure that nothing is, or everything is like as we want. So things like that, I think have helped a lot for my SEO work.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you mentioned that you were learning Python even before you started your degree. Can you share a bit about that journey? How are you learning Python in the beginning?
Yeah, so I started, of course, like YouTube at the beginning. I started like trying to see some introduction to Python, like just to make sure like what IDE I will have to use, or because at the beginning, Python, you know, we talk about Python, but how do you open Python, or how do you start coding on Python, or how do you start running stuff on Python? So that was the first thing I tried to like kind of understand. And then once I knew, like, for example, Anaconda, or I'm going to use Spider, or I'm going to use Jupyter Notebook, once I got that, but once I understood that, I started like looking for maybe some Udemy course. I really recommend one course called Automating the Boring Stuff. It's usually free, and it teaches you like every single thing from the very basics to the more complex stuff. So after I did that one, I thought that I had like a little bit of a better understanding of what Python was, and I was able to like do very simple things. But after that, yeah, that course opened like my eyes to be like, oh, this is very useful, and I need to get deeper into this.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a book that goes along with that one, Automating the Boring Stuff. So yeah, that's a great resource.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about some of the challenges that you faced with learning Python?
Yeah, so at the beginning, usually, since it's like a programming language and it has like a lot of different like things that maybe most of us are not like aware of, it was hard to keep track of like okay, I need to learn everything by heart, or I need to understand how the Python language works. So at the beginning, I was like having a hard time like thinking, oh, I need to learn everything by heart. I need to learn how to, let's say, what this library name is, or what is this, or what this other thing does. And then I realized that that was not the case. Like I realized like, okay, I don't need to learn anything by heart. I just need to learn how it works, and then I can Google everything, like everything. Like I pretty much, when I'm building like a script, I don't know anything by heart. I have like an idea in my head. I think I know how to do it, but every single detail, let's say what to put there, I pretty much Google it. Like, okay, how do I export Excel spreadsheet into like Python as a data frame? I Google it every day, and it's like a pretty simple thing, but I Google every day, and then after that, okay, I got it. But I guess that was the main like thing at the beginning, and also not to be afraid, because since it's like a programming language, some people might think like, oh, I'm never gonna get it. But this programming language is like very, very user friendly. It's like super easy to learn, and it's very straightforward. So I think it's like the best programming language to learn right now, if you ask me. It's easier than any other. It's not that complex, and it's super easy to understand.
And there are so many libraries and packages these days that make it so easy to do such a wide variety of things.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's very like a big list of libraries that are open source, and then you can do like anything that you want. So I think it's a pretty good language to learn.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're going to touch on today is Selenium. Can you explain a little bit about what that is for people who don't know?
Yeah, so Selenium it's like a library that it's used on different programming language. It's available in Python, and the library pretty much I think it was built to do testing on web applications. So to make sure that everything on your site works well, let's say we're gonna ship a new feature on an app. How do you test it? And you use Selenium. So Selenium is pretty much like a library that, let's say, works greatly with dynamic pages. For example, if we have like a page that once you click something, a table loads out with JavaScript, then Selenium is great to do that because it will let you click on the page or do like usability things on the website. So that's what Selenium. There's a pretty similar library called Beautiful Soup that that pretty much does the same, but the difference is that Selenium is great for dynamic websites, and Beautiful Soup is like perfectly for static pages. So for example, if I want to like a page that nothing changed in the DOM, I can use Beautiful Soup to like get all the HTML and then just take everything or like find things that I want there. But let's say if I have a website, for example, Google, people also ask questions. Every time you click a question, a new question shows up dynamically, right? So if I go with Beautiful Soup and check the first question, I'm only going to get 4 questions because Beautiful Soup doesn't do dynamic. You cannot click or do anything on the page. But with Selenium, you can click things and then it will keep showing more questions. So that's what Selenium, and that's kind of like the difference between Selenium and Beautiful Soup.
So with Selenium, we are able to literally run a browser with Python, and we can watch it on our screen, but I saw that you also used a headless version with your script. So can you explain what the headless version does?
Yeah, so I added like the headless flag so that you don't see the browser opening. So usually with Selenium, when you don't have the headless flag, it opens the browser and shows you exactly what the script is doing. Like, okay, opens Google, find the search bar, adds this query, click this button, go to the result page, find the people also ask question box, go and click each question, and then take what the output is and then send it back to Python. So with the headless, you can, if you remove the headless flag, you can see everything that the script is doing in action. I added the headless just to make sure, like, if somebody wants to run this in the back or doesn't want to see like what the browser is doing, it's easier. But if you want to see it, you can just remove that flag and you will be able to see exactly what the browser is doing.
I have to admit that the tutorials that I first saw about Selenium were all actually showing the screen, and I didn't know for a long time that you could just have it run in the background. It's very convenient that way.
Yeah. So again, that's why because Selenium was built to like actually be able to see what you're doing, so you can like see if let's say the web application is failing. Oh, look, we clicked the table, but it's not loading. Okay, let's go and fix that. Oh, look, we added the location of we added location, it's not populating the results what we want. But I think headless, it's like a Chrome flag. So when you run Google Chrome, you have the ability to run it headless. So that means that when you open the like Chrome, it's not going to open showing the browser. So that's like a flag that you add on the Google Chrome that is passed through Selenium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so let's go ahead and just get into showing your tool and what it does. So first we'll explain what it does, what the purpose of all this is. You can go ahead with that.
Yep. So I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So I'm gonna, I guess, try to run it first to make sure still. Sometimes one thing to mention. So here I added like the script. The first thing I ask you is ask you for a query that you want to check. So I did Netflix, and then it asks you how many questions you want to click. I did English and Spanish, so you can add the in. And then pretty much it goes into Google, clicks question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, and then the amount of questions, and then it sends you back like whatever the amount of questions that after clicking we have. So let's try it in Spanish maybe. The thing about Spanish is that I'm doing Spanish, but this is running in my local computer. So let's say if we want to like specifically results from specific locations, we will need the use of proxies. But let's see if it. So yeah, so here we can see like the 2 results. For example, how can I get Netflix for free? Everything in English, and then I did the Spanish with the same query, and then these are the questions that I'm getting. And again, you can do as many questions as you want. Let's say if I go to people and then I do Netflix again, and then I do, let's say, let's go crazy. Let's go with 20 questions. It's going to take longer, of course, because it has to click all the questions, but you will get more people also ask questions. The other thing while this is running is that once we finish the script, once the script finishes running, it outputs the questions into a CSV. Okay, Spanish is not that good because it has those encoding characters, but let's go into English. So for example, this is English. So it will output all the questions in case you want to send it to your content person or start creating content out of these questions that Google is. So let's see, quick lesson number 20. So here you can see the comparison of more questions. Do you want me to run it headless so that people see how it performs?
Yeah, with the not headless.
Sorry, yeah, not headless, I'm sorry.
Yes, yes, that would be great to just show what it does.
So so here is the code. The only thing that you add here is like a flag to tell Google Chrome that is, so then I'm gonna comment that out, which means it's not gonna run. So now if I run the script, you're gonna be able to see that on the bottom here, Google Chrome is gonna open up and it's gonna start doing, let's do something different. Let's do Uber. And then I'm gonna click only 5 questions and then I'm gonna do it in English. So now it's gonna open the browser, it's gonna put the question, it's gonna go and check where the people also ask questions are, then click them. So you see, I'm not moving the mouse or anything. Then it's clicking each question separately.
And every time that you click a question, it generates more questions. So even though we clicked 5, we see 15 questions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent.
So yeah, you're right. So I think I'm not quite sure how many questions do they generate, but usually it's between 2 or 3. So let's say this one generated these 3 questions, then this one generated these 3 questions, and so on. So let me go into how to set up this this tool. So the first thing is to we can go to the Git repo and download. There's 2 ways of download. The easy way is like just going here and click download. This will like open the repo in your download files. And then you can you can unzip it and everything is gonna be here ready to go. So after you have that, let's get out of here. You will do hopefully you save it in a location where you can find. So then you go to the folder. So you see the into people also ask. And then here there's this file called requirements.txt. which pretty much has like the libraries that we need to use. So if I open that file, you can see that there's Selenium there, and I think that's the only library that we need. Yeah. So Selenium, the latest version. So if we do that, we do pip, I think it's install. This will install the latest Selenium. Oh no, I think. Oh, I think it's because I have it installed. But if not, you can do, let's say, pip install Selenium. And then it should like, yeah, so requirements already satisfied. And it should install the package. That's the only library that this tool needs. So it's pretty straightforward. We don't need anything else. The other thing that we need to figure out is what version of Chrome we're using. So to see that, there's two ways we can do. If you know where your Chrome, like what your Chrome path is, which is pretty much the same that I'm going to use here, it's going to tell you what Chrome version is. Or you can open Google Chrome, go here, go into About, and then here is going to tell you what build you are on or what version is. So after you know the version, we need to find the correct driver to run Selenium. For that, it's pretty easy. You do Chrome driver. And in the repository, there's also like the URL. But here I'm just going into Google, but it's pretty much the same. So we can go to using Google, or you can download, you can paste the URL that I shared in the repository. And then since I had 89.04389, I download that, depending on my operating system, I download that my driver. So the script is made mainly for Mac, because the path that I'm using is like a Mac path. But if you want to use it on Windows, you can definitely do that. So I download the Mac driver, and I export this, and then so it's right here. So I'm gonna put it in the home just to make sure we know where it lives. So once we have the Chrome driver, I'm gonna look for that. We need to make sure that we have two options here. We can go into the script and change where the path lives. We can do that by doing, but by getting the path of where this driver lives, and go and update this. Or we can go and change move this to the user local bin, which is, both ways are good. So let's try the first one, and then we can try the second one. So I'm gonna put the Chrome driver here. I'm gonna save this file, and then I'm gonna try to run the script again. I think I'm gonna get an error because there's like a, oh yeah, so I need to go into the script folder. And then I can run the script again. It's gonna tell me, I think it's gonna flag me the Catalina. I have like something with the driver that you have to approve it before running it. So yeah. So if you get this message, the solution is to, I added the solution on the repo too. So you add this. So you cancel everything, you can close the script. Then you go back to where the driver lives, which is the desktop, right? And then add the following. So that is giving the Chrome driver like the right access to be executable. So if I go back again to the script folder, and then I run again the people also ask, now it should work fine. So Netflix, 2, and then again. So you see here now it's running again. Correct.
So that's just a problem that you will run into if you have the latest Mac OS version?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I really don't know why that's happening, but I think it's like a security thing.
Sure.
But it's easy to just add that that command that I gave you in the steps. And then, so that's the first way to run the script. And then the second way, if you want to make it like more secure and you don't want to have the Chrome driver living here, you can go again into the desktop where the Chrome driver lives. So here we can see Chrome driver, and we can move Chrome driver to the folder that I specify here. It was not that one. So this one, I made this like a global folder, so people that can just move it there. So if you do sudo move Chrome driver into user, I think it's local, yeah, local bin, then you will give your password since you're using sudo command. Okay, so now Chrome driver is gone from my desktop. And then if you do which Chrome driver, it's telling you that it's living there. So now if we save, oh, looks like. Now if we save the script again with the global path and we run it again, we can see that it's going to run exactly the same. So let's do four and then English. You see, it's running again. So so yeah, so that's the thing. So the script also, I added like an error flag in case there's questions. Let's say if I go into a query that doesn't have question, let's say I think Google doesn't have a question, it will tell you, hey, there's no question, so please try again. So let me try. So if I go here, I think Google, this query doesn't have any, yeah. So if we go back to this, data frame is empty, they're not question for a keyword, try a different keyword.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's it.
And so can you explain a little bit how Selenium is able to find the correct place on the page to click and the text to extract?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess it's I built this script because I was having a hard time finding all the questions. I didn't want to click on every single question. And if I wanted to have like multiple questions, then it would take me like, I don't know, maybe a week to have like a lot. So basically what Selenium does, it's what I'm going to do like manually here. So if I go to Google, right, I open Google and then I think, okay, I want to find Netflix, right? Netflix question. So what Selenium does, what I'm telling Selenium is like, okay, go into this query, open this page and find the specific ID of this box here. So thing is this one, yeah. So find this specific ID, which is called this one. So here I'm telling, okay, find the element by XPath, which is like the way of that I'm using. You can find it by ID, you can find it by CSS, but here I'm telling, okay, use this XPath and the div that contains this class. So if I look for that class here, you can see that each question is that class. So I'm looking for that one, then I'm looking for that one, then I'm looking for that one, and then I'm looking for that one. And then when you find each one of these, click it. So here I'm telling, okay, you found it, right? Then I'm printing this, and then you can do click, which means, okay, I'm clicking each specific question, and then slip 2 seconds so I can like leave it, so it doesn't look like that crazy clicking right away. And then go back again and click the second question. So what basically I'm doing is like clicking that, okay, it opens new question, clicking that, opens new question, clicking that, open new question. That's exactly why I added the number of questions you want to click, because if I didn't add that, it will keep clicking all the question into like an infinite loop until it stops.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say, okay, just click up to here. And then after I click up to here, take everything again and save it into a data frame.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm appending everything into this empty list here. And then I'm creating a data frame from that, which has all the questions. And then if the question is empty for some reason, I just drop it. But that's basically how Selenium does things. You can select IDs, you can select CSS, you can select CSS, you can select XPath, and they have a great documentation that explains like everything for Python specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, here you can, I pretty much use this when I need to find something, for example, locating elements. So you see here, you can find elements by ID, by name. You can see a link text. You can have a tag name, CSS selector, and everything. And they give you examples of how to do it. So it's pretty straightforward. It's like really good. You can also do like forms. For example, here you can. I have a script, for example, for getting my Amazon affiliate reports. But every time I have to run it, I have to put my login and my password, and you can automate that too. So I would just press enter or like leave it in the background or set it up to run every Monday, and then it just gets the report refresh every day.
So what happens if Google changes their XPath? They make a change to the code of the people also ask box.
That's a really good question because that happens a lot. So, so you have to be aware that this is not like, of course, something that Google wants us to do because they are really strict with their data. But sometimes you just need to automate your stuff and like find the best solution, right? So they're usually changing the way they serve this. So for example, sometimes this div can like, let me show you this here. The div that the question lives might change. So for example, this might not longer be this ID, right? So if that happens, what I usually do is I check first, okay, is this still present on the site? And then if it's gone, the class, then you can update with whatever class they do. Maybe in the future, Google are gonna start making dynamic classes, which is pretty hard. Maybe they're not, but what I mean is like this class will never be like a static one, and that's when I guess we're gonna have to find different ways of getting their data. But yeah, if Google changes that, it's usually like the class, and it can be changed for sure. I think they recently changed this. I made a change yesterday, and then before that, I made a change like 2 months ago because they changed the class again.
Okay. So that's not terribly frequently, but often enough that you need to know how to fix it.
Yeah. It's basically the class.
Mm-hmm.
And then
straightforward.
There's another thing too. So what if I'm hitting the page too much, right? And you see the CAPTCHA.
Mm-hmm.
So the solution for that is to use proxies. I create like this quick snippet of how it will be added to the script. But usually if you're hitting Google too much with the same like behavior over and over, Google at some point will find out, right? And then they will kind of like give you a CAPTCHA so that you prove that you're not a computer, right? So there's solutions for that. Like, of course, proxies, usually most of the proxies, or not most, if you find like a dedicated proxy, okay, it's not gonna be with CAPTCHA. But if you buy like cheap proxies, of course, sometimes they're already like over Google, so they will show the CAPTCHA. But yeah, a good solution would be like to create a proxy list, and you can jump through proxies when doing the Chrome request or like opening Google Chrome. So what I mean is like, okay, if this proxy has the CAPTCHA, then you can jump on this one, on this one, on this one, on this one, until you find a proxy that doesn't have CAPTCHA, and then you can use that one.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, you can add it as a flag. So the same way we added the flag here for Chrome headless, is the same thing with the proxy. You add a flag to use a proxy server. I
see.
cannot include this in the repo or send them to you.
Mm-hmm. And so at what point do you tend to run into that problem with the CAPTCHA? Like, are we talking about 20 queries? Are we talking about 1,000 queries? When do you think that becomes an issue?
So I have used it like a lot. And I don't have a problem when I run it, like, let's say the way I'm running it right now. Let's say I can do 20 queries or 20 or 30 or 40, right? But if I'm running it, like, let's say if somebody takes this script and creates like a non-stop script that checks query for, let's say, today, for the whole weekend, non-stop, then at some point, I think, I don't know, 100 or if Google I think Google checks for patterns mostly. So if Google sees a pattern, like, let's say, okay, this IP address is hitting Google exactly the same time over and over between queries, then it's gonna figure out, okay, this is impossible to be a human. Like, every 5 seconds, this guy is making a search, exactly every 5 seconds. So I think, yeah, I guess, I don't know, 20 keywords, if you do it like exactly the same time between searches, is gonna flag as a robot. So I guess the good way of doing it will be to create random delays between searches. So if you put like a range from, I don't know, like 1 second, 20 seconds, and then select a random number, and then every time you make the next query, it will just randomly choose from the seconds that you wait, then that will be a better way to delay Google catching you, because at some point they're gonna catch you no matter what. Because if nobody does like 1,000 searches a day or 10,000 searches a day, right? So I think if you're like cautious, you can like do longer, but yeah, like the exact number, I don't really know, but it's you will get caught at some point, I guess.
So it's the kind of thing that you should use it in a way that maybe when it's adding convenience to your life, but don't try to abuse it.
Yeah, exactly.
Understood. So is there any more step-by-step of the script that you think is important for people to understand to be able to use it?
So I thought about one that I think I didn't add because I was using it I thought that everybody will have Python installed, but the way to check if you have Python, usually the one thing to mention is that Python 2 is no longer supported. So one thing to make sure that you have is Python 3. Whatever latest version is. So to do that, you should do Python version, and then it will give you the version. If nothing pops up here, is because you don't have Python. And then I guess to install it is pretty simple. I don't know exactly how to do it, but if you Google it, it will show up. Like, as I mentioned, you Google everything. So if you Google it, it will give you like a perfect tutorial or step-by-step of how to, Brew install. I think Brew is the best way of installing. So yeah, that will be like the most important step. If you don't have Python, this script is not going to work.
And
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So if you check, you can check Python version, or you can do Python, and it should open like the Python editor in the terminal.
And can you show your script again so we can see that?
Yep.
So it seems like it's pretty straightforward because you're bringing in Selenium. You're doing those inputs the same way that we've seen you do.
Yeah. So here, one thing to change is like I added input so I can go step by step. So here I'm importing all the libraries that I need for the script. So Selenium, these are different like actions or specific part for the library. So for example, keys, I'm using it right here to send the query. And then options is like to add, this one, in fact, it should go away because it's like from the old script. But Then pandas is to clean data, is like really good. And then random is to like, it's like a library that just checks for or helps you select random numbers. And here, okay, I'm doing inputs. Everything is a string. So since click is a number, I have to transform it into integer. So I add that. And then here I also add comments of like what the function is doing. Here I'm creating the function with like three different parameters that are like brought up here. Then here I'm creating the options for Chrome driver, which the only option that I'm having is like the headless mode. And then here is where I'm initiating the driver. So I'm saying, okay, the web driver, use Google Chrome, options, use the options that I define here. And then the executable path is like where the Chrome driver that we mentioned before, which is like one of the most important things. If you don't define the executable path, it will search this path by default. So if you don't save Chrome driver on this path, it might not work. So if you don't have, let's say if you're creating your own script and you don't define this, and it's like that, it will search this path by default. So make sure that you always save Chrome driver in that.
And if you're on a Windows machine, you better change that also.
You have to do, I think, C or something like that. But it has to be where you want. You have to find the perfect place to live. I'm not sure where you will save it, but you can save it in the desktop or anywhere you want, even in a folder. So then here I'm adding, I'm getting get is like to open like the URL that you want, and I'm adding the language flag that I pass, or like the language parameter that I pass here. So pretty much it's gonna open Google like this. So Google, and then I say, okay, ES is gonna open in Spanish, or if I do EN, it's gonna open in English. So that's the difference that I do to make. Oh no, why I click this again? To get the language. And then I added if-else statement. So if language that selected was English, I print the keywords and the clicks and everything so that the user knows. And then I created this different because the search button, I selected by the name. So this here is in English, and then here is in Spanish. So I have to make a difference here. So if it's in English, try to find this search, and then grab the query that I added here and just hit return on this button. And then the same in Spanish. And then here I have another function which passed two parameters from here, the clicks and the driver, which I define here. This is where like all the magic happens. Like this is where like I find when it opens the page, it goes into the people also ask and keep clicking the question. So here I find the box, the people also ask box, and then I create a for loop with the number of clicks that we want, so I can go through the box. So I go box number 1, the I, it's a number, right? So depending on the range that we added here, which is, let's say I do 5 questions, then it will click question number 0, number 1, number 2, and it's gonna end up in 5. And then, okay, so I added try and except, which means that you're trying something, and if this is empty, then you can raise an exception of what is happening. So let's say if I go into search result and there are not people also ask question, we try that, it didn't work. So except it will tell me, okay, there's no question to click. So please add another question. So this is mostly for like error handling, so that if there's nothing, you can get a message and it doesn't stay there forever. And then at the end, after this for loop to click all the question, since I open all the question and I have like everything, let's say, ready that I want to save. So for example, I click 2 questions. So I have everything like I want to save, like all the questions. Then I create an empty data frame to store all the questions. So I go into the same driver here, which has all the questions, and save it into this empty frame. And then here I transform this empty frame into a data frame, so I can send it back into like a CSV or anything. Oh, and here again in the same function, I created like error handling for Spanish or English, or for Spanish or English. So if the data frame is empty and language is in English, we should create a data frame that says no results, please try again or try different keywords. And then if the data frame is empty and language is Spanish, the same but in Spanish. And then at the end, I added like to visit like the website that I built. And then at the end, the last part is like just the function running with all the parameters. So it's a pretty simple script. It's like less than it's 100 lines, 114 lines, but it's very straightforward. It looks complicated for somebody that is new to Python, but this is like real. Like I know that anybody that like maybe in 6 months or 4 months, you can build something like this for sure.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we are getting a couple of questions from the audience. One person asked, is there any alerts that tell us that the XPath has changed?
That's a good question. So no, I should add that, but if the XPath change, let's say you're using the script all the time, right? And you're getting all the time, data frame is empty, data frame is empty, data frame is empty. And then you go to Google, let's say, and check, okay, well, I'm using this keyword, real estate in California. And okay, for example, this one will be empty, right? But if I do real estate, and I see that this has question, then okay, the XPath change. Okay, then that's the only way I can think of, like, okay, I'm using all this question and I'm getting all the time the same error, like no question. But then when I check like Google, I can see question. Okay, something changed. So that's when you go and check if this matches. Oh my God. Matches this here.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, but that's a really good point. Like maybe I can add something like that tells you, okay, XPath is not the same, so it has been changed. It will be a good solution.
And another question is, can we talk about what the value of this data is? Do these questions tend to all get traffic, or, is there another process that you use to decide what you're going to do with that?
So usually Google is giving you like what questions users are doing against, like, let me go back to English, like against a query. So for example, if I was Uber and I want to create content, right? These are great ideas of like what people are asking about my brand that I can be answering for them. Of course, like stuff that makes sense for me, like how do I call it over? Like if I Google that, maybe they have content about that, but what if they don't? Like what if somebody else is ranking better than them, like how do I call it over? Here, the result might not be the best one, but maybe they should create a page like, okay, how do I call it over? And maybe answer all these questions for your company will get you like all these questions that people are asking, like traffic for sure. I don't think each of these questions separately will have like a high volume. Some of them will, but if you're looking for content ideas or like what to answer, or like even see what maybe they're like asking about your brand, then this is a great way. This is a great place to find ideas or things that people are asking.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then another question, is there any option to get all of the questions, not limiting the number of questions?
Yeah, I guess if you put, let's say, a number that is high enough, let's say, I think 30, or I guess you mean that I don't want to put any number, like I want to make sure that everything goes to the top, right? I think the way would be to change because I added the clicks, so it makes sense to stop at some point, because if I keep clicking this, I don't really know when.
It's pretty infinite, it seems.
Maybe it's infinite. I don't really know. Like, what if it stays for like a day, clicking and clicking and clicking, and then you never get out of that loop, Like
and you might get to questions that one person asked one time.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it goes very deep in their database and find like every single question. You know, like you see, I can keep clicking, and it's gonna keep adding more questions. But I think there's a limit. Yeah. So sometimes I remember I've gotten up to like 200 questions at some point too. But I have never gotten into like the limit of like what the question will be. But yeah, I guess you can remove the clicks. No, sorry, if you remove the clicks, it's not gonna work because there's a for loop here. I guess it will have to tweak this part, because what basically here we're doing like the clicks, but I guess if we remove all this, let's say we do yeah, I will have to change it, but like I guess if you add a high number of clicks, it should get you like, I don't know, like as many questions. You can put 100 clicks.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's 100 questions that will keep popping in, and then if it gets to the end, it will tell you it will get you like this whole box, I think. So put like, let's say, try to get 50 clicks or 60, I guess. So you see, I keep clicking random questions and they keep coming up. Like if I click the last one, it keeps popping question. So I don't really know what is the limit, to be honest.
I would not know either, but that is something that you could definitely experiment with if you were curious. Sure. Let's see. I'm reading a question, but I haven't understood it yet. Let me see. Michael asked, how easy would it be to add the answer to these questions, just adding a loop for the CSS ID for the questions? So, I'm not sure that I understand.
So I think I kind of understand. I think that's a good question, because a lot of people ask, okay, I think what he means is like, I want to get all the question, and I also want to get the answer that this question has. Because if you click each question, they all have an answer, right? Yes. Might not be the best answer, but it has a snippet of like what the answer is. So I have a separate script for that. The only problem is that it gets messy, because sometimes answers have like 2 parts or 3 parts. For example, this one has 1, 2, 3. And then this one, well, most of them have 3 parts. But yeah, I have a separate script for that I can include in the repo. And it's pretty much the same that we're doing now. But there's an extra step here when you're saving the question in this empty data frame. You have to like add something here, because we need to find like what ID this whole thing is. So for example, if I go here, this whole box, and then each one of these, not that, but like that is the question, and then where is the answer? Yeah, so that's that. This is the ID. So this tip will get us everything. So that, and that. So yeah, it's totally possible. I think I have a separate script that gives you like a CSV with everything. But yeah, I wanted to focus like just in the questions, so it doesn't make it that complex, because it gets kind of like messy at some point.
Sure, I'm sure. Okay, well, I think that's all of the questions that we have. Can you share with us your simpletools.io so that people can check that out also? Yeah,
so it's pretty much the same, but the only difference is that I added sentiment analysis. Let's see if it works. Sometimes the server doesn't work very well, but usually it should work. So basically what I did is like I did the same thing. I limit the number of questions for server cost, but basically what it does is gets all the questions that we're seeing here. So for example, whatever Google has on these questions, and then it adds runs natural language processing to check what sentiment is the question. So if it's, let's say, if it comes in this range, it's a positive sentiment, and if it comes in this range, it's a neutral, and then if it comes in this range, it's a negative. So for example, here I put Netflix, Why is Netflix free? The API is thinking that it's like mostly negative. For example, here, why Netflix is so expensive? The API also thinks like a very negative question. And then is Disney Plus better than Netflix? For some reason, it thinks it's mostly positive. But yeah, pretty much it's like the same. I limit the number of questions here. You cannot choose, but yeah, you can download the data and get the same export.
And I also noticed that we have a link to your GitHub, which there's definitely other cool tools on there. You know, we didn't have time to show off all the things that you have made today, but you have definitely some cool ones like your rank tracker that will check your rankings on a daily basis, just running a cron job in the background. And there's a few other ones in there too. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, I usually create these just to make sure like I can solve problems with SEO in a simple way. So that's why I think Python is like a great resource, because here, this is like a rank checker for free. For example, this is the people also ask. Here, there's like an SEO dashboard. If you want to like, let's say, save your Google Search Console data into like a database and then clean it and put it in a dashboard. So stuff like that. So you can, definitely check my report.
Yeah, and we appreciate that you have everything open source and sharing everything there. All right, so we'll wrap up for today, but I want to thank you so much for joining us, Konrad. We had a great time talking to you, and we really appreciate you sharing that with us. Just for a moment, I'll talk about Ranksense. So Ranksense is an SEO solution that runs on Cloudflare. Using Google Sheets, you can implement SEO changes on thousands of pages with just a few clicks. No developers are required. Ranksense can monitor your site for SEO issues, track the activity of search engine bots that visit, and automatically create meta descriptions using the power of artificial intelligence. Get in touch with me for an extended free trial by emailing support@ranksense.com. All right, so we will wrap up. Oh, also our YouTube channel, it features all of our past webinars, and this webinar will also be uploaded soon after this. So keep an eye out for that. All right, thanks so much again, Konrad. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks everyone for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.